A scar that never healed, the enduring conflict of India's partition. The year 1947 marked a pivotal moment in South Asian history. It saw the end of British colonial rule. It also witnessed the birth of two new nations, India and Pakistan. This momentous event, however, came at a tragic cost. The Partition of India, along religious lines, unleashed one of the largest mass migrations in human history. It also ignited a conflict that continues to cast a long shadow over the region. The partition was meant to be a clean break. It aimed to create two states for two distinct religious communities. India would be a Hindu-majority nation. Pakistan, on the other hand, would serve as a homeland for Muslims. But the reality proved far messier and more brutal than this idealistic vision. As the boundaries were drawn, millions found themselves on the wrong side of the divide. Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs had lived together for centuries. Now they were forced to flee their homes in a desperate search for safety. The ensuing violence claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands, perhaps even a million. 76 years later, the wounds of partition remain raw. The conflict over Kashmir, a region claimed by both India and Pakistan, continues to simmer. It has led to 3 wars and numerous smaller clashes. Both countries possess nuclear weapons, making the dispute a source of global anxiety. The legacy of partition is a stark reminder of the human cost of division. It is a story of displacement, violence, and enduring animosity. As we grapple with the challenges of a world increasingly defined by identity politics, the lessons of 1947 resonate with chilling relevance. If you found this video insightful, please like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. The seeds of discord, British rule, and the rise of Hindu-Muslim tensions. To understand the roots of the India-Pakistan conflict, we must turn back the clock to the era of British colonialism. For nearly 2 centuries, the British Raj ruled India with an iron fist. They exploited the country's resources while simultaneously sowing the seeds of division among its diverse communities. Under British rule, the concept of divide and rule became a central tenet of governance. The British often favored certain religious or ethnic groups over others. This policy, whether intentional or not, exacerbated existing tensions between Hindus and Muslims. As the 20th century dawned, a growing sense of nationalism began to sweep across India. However, this unity was fragile. Muslim leaders, feeling increasingly marginalized within the independence movement, began to demand a separate Muslim state. They argued that Muslims would be perpetually relegated to second-class status in a Hindu-majority India. The Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, emerged as the champion of this two-nation theory. Jinnah, initially an advocate for Hindu-Muslim unity, became convinced that partition was the only way to safeguard the interests of India's Muslims. The British, eager to maintain their influence in the region even as their empire crumbled, did little to quell these growing divisions. In fact, some historians argue that they actively encouraged the partition, seeing it as a way to weaken a newly independent India. A nation divided. The 1947 partition and the birth of Pakistan. The stage for partition was set in the aftermath of World War II. Britain, exhausted and financially drained by the war, was no longer able to hold on to its vast empire. In June 1947, the British government announced its plan to grant India independence, but with a crucial caveat. The country would be partitioned into 2 separate dominions, India and Pakistan. The announcement triggered an unprecedented upheaval. Millions of Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs found themselves on the wrong side of the newly drawn borders. Panic set in, and what followed was one of the largest mass migrations in human history. Bloodshed and displacement, the humanitarian crisis of partition. The partition of India was not a clean break. It was a bloody and chaotic affair, marked by widespread violence and displacement. As people scrambled to cross the new borders, they were often met with hostility, violence, and even death. Mobs, fueled by religious hatred, roamed the streets, attacking innocent civilians. Trains packed with refugees became death traps, their passengers massacred by rival mobs. Women were often the targets of horrific violence, abducted, raped, and murdered. The exact death toll from the partition violence remains unknown. Estimates range from hundreds of thousands to as many as 2 million. What is certain is that the partition left an indelible scar on the psyche of both India and Pakistan. The violence and displacement of partition created a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Refugee camps overflowed with people who had lost everything, their homes, their families, and their sense of belonging. The newly formed governments of India and Pakistan, struggling to cope with the massive influx of refugees, were ill-equipped to handle the crisis. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.